Well now, honey, if you think your soul grows old, let me tell you something. Just the other day, I was sitting right here on this porch, same chair I've had since Ray brought it home from the flea market in '79. He bargained that poor man down to $5 and a jar of my peach jam, bless his soul, and I caught a smell in the air. Apples. Cinnamon. Maybe a little nutmeg. And wouldn't you know it, it near knocked the wind out of me. Took me straight back to 1961. Just like that. You ever had that happen? A smell or a sound, like the creak of a screen door or the first notes of a tune you ain't heard in decades, and suddenly you're not 83 sitting in orthopedic shoes, you're 21 again, barefoot in the grass, with your whole life laid out ahead like laundry on the line. That smell came from Betty's window. She's my neighbor across the yard. Bakes when she's nervous. Her daughter's having a baby any day now. Poor girl's been in and out of contractions for a week. But anyway, that pie, that smell, it took me back to the fall my mama taught me how to make crust that wouldn't fall apart. We didn't have much, Lord have mercy. Some years we didn't have a pot to pee in, but we had apples. And laughter. And soft music playing on the kitchen radio. Mama always hummed when she rolled dough, and when I hear that tune, Blue Moon, remember that one? Well, it still makes my chest ache just a little. You know, there's a story I've kept to myself for a long, long time. But lately I've been thinking maybe it's time I shared it. Not for sympathy. No. I've had my share of good cries and belly laughs, and I ain't looking for pity. But because this story, it's been tapping on the walls of my memory like an old friend wanting in. And maybe someone out there needs to hear it. It's funny, isn't it? My body creaks like the porch floorboards and my knees holler every time it rains. But when I close my eyes, I swear to you, I still feel 20. My hands may be knotted with arthritis, but my soul? Oh, she still dances barefoot at sunset, running wild through the clover like she used to. That girl inside me? She never left. She just got quieter over the years, tucked herself behind grocery lists and grandbaby birthday cards and church bake sales. But she's been whispering again. And last night, after that pie smell stirred up the past, I sat here till the stars came out, listening to her. So, if you've got a minute, maybe a warm cup of something and a quiet heart, I'd like to tell you about the things that haven't changed. Not really. Not deep down. About what it means to grow old in the body, but stay young in the soul. About sunsets and mirrors and Sunday nights when your heart just about bursts with something you can't quite name. About love and loss and the ache that never quite leaves. This ain't no big tale with heroes and fireworks. It's just pieces of a woman's life, stitched together like one of my old quilts, worn, patched, but still warm, still holding stories. So sit with me, just for a little while. I think it's time. You know, folks always talk about the good old days like they were perfect. They weren't, but they were ours. And in my memory, they still shine like sunlight on a clean kitchen floor. I was born in 1942, right in the heart of Ohio, a little place outside Chillicothe, where the grass was tall and the cherries turned red in late June, and everybody knew who brought what to the church picnic. We lived on a modest patch of land, not much more than a few acres, but to me it felt as big as the whole world. Daddy raised chickens and a stubborn old cow named Mabel, and Mama tended to her garden like it was her second set of children. I had 2 older brothers who never stopped teasing me and a baby sister who thought I hung the moon. We weren't rich, land sakes alive. We didn't even have indoor plumbing till I was near 16, but Lord, we made do with what we had. That was just the way things were back then. Mornings started early, with the rooster thinking he owned the place, and Mama humming in the kitchen, apron tied snug and flour already in her hair. The smell of biscuits and coffee drifting down the hallway could rouse the dead, and I'd pad barefoot into the warmth of it all, rub and sleep from my eyes. We had breakfast at a big oak table that Daddy made himself, every chair just a little different, like us. I always sat on the one with the wobbly leg, said it made me feel like I was riding a wave. Mornings were my favorite time. They were full of promise. I remember swinging on the tire out back, letting the wind pull my hair like a kite string, and watching the clouds pass like slow-moving dreams. I used to imagine I was going to be a writer one day. Not just the kind who scribbled grocery lists or Sunday school notes. No, ma'am. I was going to write stories that lived in people's hearts. Stories that mattered. But you know how life goes. One minute you're daydreaming under the hickory tree, the next you're learning how to iron a shirt and balance a checkbook. Still, back then, I believed in happy endings. I believed that if you were kind and worked hard, everything would somehow turn out all right. I was maybe 12 or 13 when I first understood that grown-ups carried sadness in their pockets, real quiet like. I'd catch Mama standing at the window sometimes, staring out at nothing, her hands still wet from the sink. And Daddy, who was usually whistling some Hank Williams tune, would get awful quiet some evenings when the crops weren't doing well. But they never let it weigh down the house. They tucked their troubles between hymns and laughter like good folks do. I guess if I had to tell you who I was back then, I'd say I was a curious girl with big feelings. Sensitive, Mama used to say, like it was both a blessing and a bit of a burden. I felt things deeply. Still do. I cried over lost baby birds, over books where the main character didn't get the happy ending, and once, over a boy who gave me a cherry lifesaver and then never spoke to me again. I laugh about it now, but back then, I was convinced it meant something. I dreamed of adventure, but I also loved the quiet. I'd sit by the window during thunderstorms and pretend I was in a lighthouse, watching the world from a safe distance. Funny, isn't it? How much of who we are never really changes, just gets quieter, more settled. I believed in good. I believed people would always come back if you left the porch light on. And I believed, truly, that love could fix anything, cracked bowls, broken hearts, even the kind of lonely that slips in at night when everyone else is asleep. And now, when I sit here and let my memories unfold like quilt squares in my lap, I realize that little girl, barefoot and wide-eyed, she's still in here. She never went far. I was 16 when I first laid eyes on Raymond McClary. Ray. My Ray. Now don't go thinking it was all hearts and fireworks right off. Oh no. It was quiet, like most important things are when they first arrive. You don't always recognize the start of forever when it walks through the door. Sometimes, it just looks like a boy with a crooked smile and grass stains on his jeans. It was a Tuesday, hot as sin, and the fan in the school office was working overtime just to stir the stale air. I'd been helping Miss Carter with filing. She was our school secretary, stern as a barn owl but kind underneath it, and he came in a skin for summer work papers. Said he'd be helping his uncle with roofing. He took off his cap, nodded real polite, but his eyes, Lord have mercy, they were the color of creek water after rain. Soft and stormy all at once. I remember thinking, that boy's got something he ain't telling anybody. And, just like that, something in me shifted. I didn't even know what it was then. Just that my heart gave one of those little flutters that makes you look around and pretend you didn't feel it. I saw him again that Sunday at church. He was sitting in the back row next to his aunt, who sang every hymn like she was auditioning for the angels. He caught my eye during the benediction and gave me a smile, not a full grin. Mind you, just the edge of one. That was enough to keep me up half the night, kicking my legs under the quilt like a fool. Now, I wasn't the type to go all soft over a boy. Mama raised us practical, she used to say. Don't let a handsome face rent space in your head if his heart can't pay the bills. But there was something about Ray. The way he held silence. The way he watched people like he was trying to read their stories instead of just hear their words. We started talking after church. Just a little here and there. Then walks down to the feed store, sitting by the creek, passing notes folded into fourths like secrets. One day, he brought me a book, not flowers, not candy, a book. Said he found it in his grandma's attic, thought I might like it since I was always scribbling in that little notebook. It was a tattered copy of Little Women. Inside the front cover, he'd written, "You remind me of Joe, stubborn and soft all at once." That was the first time I knew he really saw me. Looking back, that summer was when the world cracked open just a bit. Everything felt bigger. Every smell sharper, every song slower, every goodbye more tender. I didn't understand it all, couldn't be told you why I got tongue-tied when he looked my way or why my stomach felt like the county fair every time he walked up the porch steps, but deep down I knew life had changed. Something had entered, or someone, and nothing would be quite the same again. You know, I've thought a lot about that moment, the first time you realize you're not just in the world, but feeling it. Like really feeling it. The way breeze touches your neck, or how your hands remember the way someone else's felt without trying. Ray was my first great shift. Not a storm, not a crush, more like the first leaf turning red in September. You almost miss it, but if you're lucky you pause and notice. And everything after that glows a little different. It's funny, isn't it? How one moment can feel like a pebble in your shoe, nothing much at all. And then, years later, you realize it was the beginning of a landslide. I remember the first time life stopped being simple. I didn't see it coming, that's how it usually works. One day you're picking blackberries for a pie, and the next, everything tastes like ash. It was 1959. I had just turned 17. Ray and I had been courting proper, hand-holding Sunday dinners, the occasional kiss behind the barn when Mama wasn't looking. We talked about things like they were already ours, a house, a little dog, maybe 3 kids if God saw fit. He was fixin' to work full-time with his uncle after graduation, and I planned on taking a job downtown, savin' up, maybe writin' in the evenings if I could keep my eyes open long enough. But the trouble came quiet. Ray's father, a hard man, strict, the kind who believed emotion was weakness, he didn't take kindly to Ray spendin' so much time with a girl from a dirt farm. He thought I was too soft, not ambitious, not wife material, as he said to my face once, without so much as a blank. Told Ray he'd disown him if he kept on with me. And I was so stunned I just stood there, feeling like someone had poured cold water down my back. Ray, bless him, tried to fight it. Said he didn't care about money, about his father's land, about expectations. But I could see the war in his eyes. That boy wanted to be his own man, but he also wanted to make his father proud. And me? Well, I wanted to scream. I wanted to shake them both and say, "Why can't love be enough?" But I didn't. I just smiled polite, nodded my head, and swallowed the storm. That's what girls did in those days. And then, just like that, Ray pulled away. Not all at once, no. First, he stopped walking me home. Then the notes stopped comin'. Then, one Sunday, he sat 3 pews back and didn't meet my eye even once. I told folks it was fine. Said we were young, and things change. But at night, I'd lie in bed staring at the ceiling, cheeks wet and chest tight, wondering what I'd done wrong. Shame's a strange thing. It sneaks in, even when you've got nothing to be ashamed of. Mama tried to comfort me in her way. She brought me tea with honey, brushed my hair, told me if a man don't fight for you, he ain't the one. But it still hurt. Lord, did it hurt. Not just losing Ray, but losing that picture in my head. That future. That simple kind of forever I thought I had in my hands. And more than anything, I hated how small I felt. Like all of me had been measured and come up short. It wasn't just about love. It was the first time I realized that being good, kind, honest, hopeful didn't always protect you. That sometimes people made decisions that had nothing to do with what was right and everything to do with power or pride or fear. It cracked something in me. Not broke, no, but cracked. And when the light came in through that crack, it looked different than before. Sharper, less golden. I didn't stop living. I kept helping Mama, went to work, laughed when I could. But part of me stayed back there on that dirt road where Ray last kissed my hand and said, "I'm sorry." I didn't know then how many more times life would ask me to be strong. But that was the first. And I've never forgotten how it felt to smile through something you don't yet have words for. It was a Tuesday. Funny how the worst days never come looking like trouble. The sun was out, the laundry smelled like lilacs, and I had just pulled a pie out of the oven, cherry, Ray's favorite. I remember humming to myself some tune from the radio, something sweet and forgettable. The kitchen clock ticked like it always did, steady like breathing. I didn't know then it was the last ordinary moment I'd ever have with him. Ray had been feeling tired, that kind of tired that clings to your bones no matter how long you sleep. We thought it was the weather, maybe a touch of the flu. But that morning, he'd kissed my cheek, same way he had for 47 years, and said, "Be back in time for supper, hon," and I, fool that I was, just nodded. Didn't hug him long, didn't say anything special. Just, "Don't forget the eggs." That was the last thing I said to the man I loved. Don't forget the eggs. They said it was instant. That kind of thing doctors always say, like it makes it easier. He didn't suffer. As if that should make you feel any less hollow. I didn't believe it. Still don't. I think he knew. I think in that split second, as the wheel jerked and the truck left the road, he thought of me. And maybe he was sorry he didn't kiss me twice that morning. Or maybe he smiled. I hope to God he smiled. I remember how the phone rang. I remember how the screen door creaked when the sheriff walked up. I remember how my hands went still, dough still under my nails. And I remember the clock. It was 3:42. It's still 3:42 in part of me. Forever. The days after were a blur. People brought casseroles, said all the wrong things. He's in a better place. At least you had a long time together. I wanted to scream. I wanted to throw every dish against the wall and scream that no time is ever long enough when you love someone like that. 47 years, and I still didn't know how to breathe without him. I couldn't sleep in our bed. Couldn't walk past his chair without my chest tightening like a fist. I kept hearing his voice in the hall, swearing he'd just stepped out for firewood. I'd reach for 2 coffee cups every morning, even though my hands shook so bad I could barely lift one. And one night, I don't know what came over me, I sat on the floor in my nightgown and held his boots. Just sat there, rocking like a fool, whispering, "Come back, Ray. Just for one more minute. One more breath." Grief is a strange companion. Quiet at first, then all-consuming. It turns the light in your kitchen cold. It makes time cruel. But the worst part, is how it makes you doubt. Doubt whether you mattered. Whether he knew how much I loved him. Whether I was enough. But here's what I know now, all these years later. I did love him. With every part of me that was ever young and foolish and hopeful. And he loved me. Imperfectly. Steadily. And when he left, it didn't break me, not entirely. It just changed the shape of me. Bent my bones around the missing part, like roots growing around a rock. That was the day time stopped. But eventually, the wind still blew. The pie still cooled. The clock ticked again. And I got up, I poured 1 cup of coffee, and I kept going. The thing they never tell you about grief is how quiet it gets. After the casseroles stop coming, after the phone calls taper off, after the last person says, "Let me know if you need anything," and means it, but life pulls them back into their own. That's when it sets in. Not the loud crying, not the dramatic sobs you see in movies. No, real grief. It's quieter than a whisper. It lives in the corners of the house, in the spaces where someone used to be. After Ray passed, the house felt too big. Not by square footage. Lord knows it's a humble little place. But by weight. His absence echoed. I'd wake up thinking he was in the kitchen, whistling some tune while the coffee perked. I'd roll over, reach out, and remember. And then I'd just lie there, watching the light crawl across the ceiling, wondering how the world could still spin when mine had stopped. The hardest part wasn't the crying. It was the stillness, the silence at supper, the single toothbrush in the cup, the cold side of the bed that never warmed up again. I got real quiet myself. Didn't feel like talking. Didn't want folks saying things they thought were helpful. So I smiled polite, nodded when I had to, and then came home and sat on the porch till the sun went down. There were days I didn't recognize myself. I'd catch my reflection in the hallway mirror, face sagging, eyes dull, and I'd think, who is that woman? Where's the fire? Where's the girl who used to laugh so loud she snorted? I didn't know how to be alone. Ray and we'd done life together for nearly 5 decades. Every decision, every joy, every little routine, it was us. And now it was just me. I tried to keep busy, baked more than I needed, gave pies to neighbors who probably didn't even like cherries. I cleaned closets that didn't need cleaning. I rearranged the living room 3 times before I put it all back the way Ray liked it. I crocheted. Lord, did I crochet. Made a whole afghan I never used. Just needed to keep my hands from feeling empty. I stopped going to church for a while. Couldn't bear the hymns, too many memories in those notes. Couldn't sit in that pew alone. Even God felt far away, like he'd stepped up for a while. I didn't stop believing. I just stopped talking. But time, well, it's a strange healer. It don't fix things. Don't tie 'em up neat. But it softens the edges. Blurs the pain just enough that you can breathe again. Some mornings I'd wake up and forget, just for a second, that I was alone. And instead of crying when I remembered, I'd just lie there. Quiet. Not okay. But not shattered either. I started noticing the little things again. The way the sun hit the maple tree in October. The laugh of my grandson, who'd inherited Ray's lopsided grin. The sound of rain on the roof, that steady rhythm that reminded me the world was still moving. I didn't feel whole. But I didn't feel broken anymore either. Just changed. I don't know if I ever got over it. I think some things you just carry different. Like a scar that doesn't hurt but still itches when it rains. I lost a part of myself when Ray died. But I found something too. I found I could stand. Even when I didn't want to. Even when my knees shook and my hands trembled, I stood. And sometimes, that's enough. You know, I used to think second chances came like thunderclaps, big and bold, with some kind of sign from the heavens. Turns out, most of 'em come quiet. Like a porch breeze in late spring. You don't even notice the moment at first. Just that something inside you shifts a little. Like a light coming back on in a room you'd forgotten how to use. It started the day I found that envelope. I was cleaning out Ray's old toolbox. Lord knows why. I hadn't touched it since the funeral. Dust was thick, and it smelled like oil and cedar. I opened the top drawer and there it was, a letter. Folded neat, my name in his handwriting, the same way he used to label the jars of jam I made. My heart jumped out of my chest. He'd written it a few weeks before the accident. Said he just felt like getting words down in case. Typical Ray, quiet, thoughtful, always thinking a step ahead. In that letter, he didn't say anything fancy. Just that he loved me. That if anything ever happened, he wanted me to remember I wasn't alone. That I'd still have purpose. That I was more than just his wife, that I was Hazel. You've got a spark in you, he wrote. Don't let it go out, sweetheart. I must have read that letter 100 times, cried over it, slept with it under my pillow for weeks. But one morning I woke up and didn't cry. Just smiled. A sad smile, but a real one. And I thought, all right, Ray, I'll try. That's when I started walking again. Just down the street at first. Said hello to neighbors I hadn't really looked in the eye since the funeral. Betty, my neighbor across the fence, waved me in for coffee one morning and I actually went. Sat at her table, listened to her going on about her daughter's messy divorce and the cat that kept bringing dead things to the porch. And somewhere between her stories and the smell of burnt toast, I laughed. Not a big laugh, but it shook the quiet off me, just a little. Then came the day I saw the sign outside the library, Storytime volunteers needed. Now, I hadn't read aloud to a group since my kids were in grade school. But something tugged at me. I walked right in, signed my name, and next week I was sitting in a tiny chair reading Charlotte's Web to a bunch of wiggly 6-year-olds who smelled like glue and apple juice. And I swear, honey, the way their eyes lit up when the spiders started talking, it lit something in me too. I started writing again. Just a little, nothing fancy. But one morning I sat down with a pencil and a spiral notebook and wrote the words, "She never expected to be old." But she was. And somehow, she was still beautiful. And I just kept going. You see, grief doesn't end. It just makes space for other things to grow beside it. Like wildflowers pushing up through cracks in the pavement. I didn't think I had more to give. I figured I was just passing time. But turns out, time don't just pass, it opens. And if you listen real close, you'll hear your name in the breeze. Ray was gone. That didn't change. But I was still here. And the world, though quieter, older, changed, was still full of things that needed love, needed hands, needed stories, and maybe, just maybe, needed me. You hold on to things longer than you think. Grief, yes, but guilt too. Regret, sorrow, shame, they settle into the folds of your heart like dust in old curtains, and you don't notice how heavy it's gotten. Till one day you stop and ask yourself why your chest won't rise like it used to. For me, it was a box. Just a plain old shoebox sitting on the shelf in the back of the hallway closet. Hadn't touched it in years. Didn't even like to look at it. Inside were little pieces of my life with Ray. Not the kind folks frame and hang. These were quieter things, a key to the old truck we sold, a receipt from the diner where he asked me to marry him, a picture of us in the backyard with grass stains on our jeans and pie on our faces, and a letter I never sent. I wrote it the night after our biggest fight. Ray had wanted to take a job in Cleveland. Said we needed the money, that the roof was going bad and the kids' shoes were getting tight. I wanted to stay put. I was scared. Scared of big change, of big cities, of the unknown. We yelled. He slept on the couch. And I wrote him a letter. Told him I was sorry. Told him I'd follow him anywhere, that I trusted him even when I was scared. But I never gave it to him. I put it in that box, thinking maybe later. Later never came. After he died, that letter turned into a weight. I carried it like a stone, not because we didn't make up, we did, quietly the next morning over eggs and burnt toast, but because I never said the words out loud, never gave him the letter. And some part of me thought that maybe, just maybe, if I had, things would have been different. Better. Lighter. That letter was my unfinished sentence, my undone kindness, and I let it haunt me longer than I'd care to admit. But last week, and I don't know what came over me, I pulled that box down, sat at the kitchen table with the window open, breeze coming in like an old friend, and I read that letter out loud, just to the air, just to myself, maybe to him. And then I burned it, watched it curl and darken and drift up like memory into the sky. And in that moment, I did something I hadn't done in a long, long time. I forgave myself, not for being scared, not for holding back, but for being human, for not always saying the right thing, for loving imperfectly and still thinking that was somehow not enough. You see, people think forgiveness is for other folks, but sometimes the one we need to let off the hook is ourselves. I chose to let go, not of Ray, Lord, no, he stitched into every thread of who I am, but of the story that I wasn't enough, that I could have done more, that loving someone for nearly 50 years still left something unfinished. I chose to live forward, not with my eyes closed to the past, but with my hands open to what comes next. I chose peace, and honey, peace don't come in fireworks. It comes in silence, in soft mornings, in walking through your house and finally feeling like you belong there again. I chose to stay, to be here, fully. No more lingering in the what if, no more maybe someday. I'm still here, I'm still breathing, and I'll be damned if I don't make that mean something. I used to think life was a straight line. You're born, you grow, you love, you lose, and somewhere near the end, you look back and try to make sense of it all. But now I think it's more like a quilt. Bits and pieces, some bright, some torn, all stitched together in a pattern that don't always show itself till you stand way back. And even then, some parts still don't make sense. But they're yours. Every frayed corner, every color you didn't choose, still yours. I've had a lot of time to sit with my own story. Rockin' on this porch, watching seasons turn like pages, I've thought about the girl I was and the woman I became. And somewhere in between, I stopped wishing I could go back and fix things. Started thinking, God, I made it through. With laughter lines, with scars, with hands that still hold warmth, even if they shake a bit now. What I've come to believe is this: life don't ask you to be perfect. It asks you to show up as you are, with what you've got. Some days that's a whole heart, and some days it's just enough strength to get out of bed and open the curtains. And that's all right. That counts too. We spend so much time waiting, don't we? Waiting to feel ready. Waiting for the right words, the right moment, the right sign. I spent years waiting to feel whole again after Ray passed. Waiting to write again. Waiting to stop missing the sound of someone else's breath in the room. But let me tell you, honey, waiting don't heal you. Doing does. One small act of love, of courage, of showing up, that's where the light gets in. And maybe you're sitting there thinking, what do I know? I'm just one woman sitting in a wicker chair talking to the wind. But I've lived 8 decades. I've loved and lost and stitched myself back together more than once. I've danced barefoot and wept in silence and laughed so hard I couldn't breathe, and I wouldn't trade a minute of it, not even the hard ones, especially not the hard ones. They taught me how deep my roots really go. I've learned that beauty don't end at 20, or 40, or 70. It shifts, it settles, it deepens. You stop chasing it and start feeling it, in the way your grandbaby curls into you, or how your hands remember how to make a pie crust even when your mind's foggy. That's real beauty. That's real living. I've learned that we get so caught up in the things we didn't do, didn't say, didn't become, but we forget to celebrate what we did, who we held, what we endured. The quiet kindnesses that never made a headline but kept someone else going. And maybe, just maybe, it's time for you to stop waiting. Stop waiting for the storm to pass, or the ache to go away, or the perfect chapter to begin. Life's not waiting. It's moving right now. Breathe in beside you. And you, whether you're 20 or 70 or somewhere lost in between, you still have something to give. I'm 83. My body moves slower, my voice creaks, and I don't always remember where I left my glasses. But my soul is still swinging her feet off the edge of the porch, humming a tune only she remembers. So, if you take anything from this old voice of mine, let it be this: you are not too late. You are not too broken. You are still here. So come on, pull back the curtain. Let the light in. Maybe, just maybe, it's your time to begin again. Well now, honey, we've come a long way together, haven't we? From the smell of apple pie in a kitchen long gone, to the quiet creak of these old bones on this porch. I hope you felt what I felt, that mix of joy and sorrow, the laughter and the tears, the soft ache of memory that sometimes feels like a warm hug and other times like a gentle sting. That's life, isn't it? A tapestry woven with every color of the heart. I want you to know the story, my story. It's not just about the past. Oh no, it's about today. It's about now. Because even though my body has slowed and my hair has silvered my soul, she's still here, still dancing barefoot on the grass, still chasing the sunsets like a girl who knows the magic of a golden hour and holds it close. You see, growing old isn't about the wrinkles or the aches. It's about holding on to the things that never fade: love, hope, the memories that shape us, and the dreams that keep us going. I still believe in those things. I always will. And I hope you do too. So here's a little something I want to leave you with, a question that's been tucked in my heart for a long time, and maybe it'll nestle in yours a bit too. Do you think true love ever really leaves us? I mean, the kind that touches your soul so deeply it changes who you are, even after all these years. The kind that comes back around in the quiet moments, in a breeze that smells like cherries, or in a song that makes you pause and smile. Sometimes, I think it does. Sometimes I feel like Ray's still here, in the spaces between my words, in the soft hush of the evening, in the way the porch light flickers just so. And sometimes I wonder if that's just my heart fooling me, or maybe, just maybe, it's love's way of reminding us it's never really gone. I don't have all the answers, and maybe that's the point. Life's mystery isn't in the knowing, it's in the feeling. In the moments we hold close, the ones we share with folks we love, and the ones we save just for ourselves. The stories that keep us company when the world gets too loud, and the silences that let our souls breathe. So, my dear friend, as you go about your day, I hope you carry a little bit of this with you. The idea that no matter where you are in your journey, no matter how much has changed or how much you've lost, there's still a light inside you that can't be dimmed. That there's still music in your heart, still stories worth telling, still a dance waiting to happen, even if it's just in your mind, or your dreams, or in the quiet spaces of your soul. And if you ever catch a scent of something sweet on the breeze, or hear a melody that makes your heart stir, maybe take a moment to smile and remember, you are not alone. Love has a way of coming back. It always has. Thank you for sitting with me a while, for listening to an old woman ramble about days gone by and lessons learned. It means more than words can say. And now, tell me, what do you think? Does true love come back? I'd love to hear your story, your thoughts. Write to me. Share with someone you love. Because these stories are stories, they keep us alive. They keep the dance going. Until next time, keep your heart open and your feet bare. And remember, my body may be slowin', but my soul is still dancing. just like when I was 20.